I'll start off with an easy one, and that's Centralia, Pennsylvania. From the late 1800s to the 1960s, this place was a quaint but bustling town in Little Pennsylvania, thanks to its very prosperous coal mines. However, when a mine mysteriously caught fire in 1962, the flames began to spread underground via the interconnecting tunnels. Although the citizens were aware of the situation, they weren't truly troubled until two isolated incidents a couple years later. A gas station owner reporting abnormally high gasoline temperatures in his underground tanks in 1979, and a young boy nearly falling into a 150-foot deep sinkhole over in his backyard in 1981. After that, the town's population plummeted. This town has burned for about 50 years now. This mine certainly seems like a fiery lair of dastardly demons and spirits. What's more is the fire heats the groundwater to boiling temperatures, causing a lot of steam to rise. On a lot of days, this gives Centralia's landscape an unsettling, misty appearance. With only a couple of buildings left, it's a abandoned place. A lot of the residents are not there. I think there's only 4 left. So if you go to Centralia, it's a ghost town. This place has actually more people buried there than it has living residents, which is super unsettling if you ask me. So if you're driving around the town, you'll find 3 cemeteries: St. Ignatius, St. Peter and Paul Orthodox, and Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary. If you're gonna walk around the ruins of this modern day ghost town, it'll give you the feeling of supernatural forces working underfoot. And because of all this, there's been some stories that have come to light. Some are stories from visitors who left in fear after thinking they saw a person or a thing, heard odd sounds, and some folks just felt like they were being watched. Other people go so far as to say that this place is the gateway to hell. One group of visitors heard what sounded like a voice saying something inaudible from down below when they were visiting a cemetery. At first they were like, okay, maybe it's somebody else, and they're like, forget about it. Then they heard it again, a little more clearly, just a few words, and it sort of sounded like, leave this place. At that moment, the hill the group was standing on started steaming, more so than before, and it really stunk, like rotten eggs. It spooked the friends, so they made the decision to leave, and as they were heading back to their car, they heard it again. Not the same words and not clear, but something like, why? Why did you do that? What was even weirder is that it wasn't like somebody was yelling it out of the bushes. It was quiet, kind of closer. Nobody knew where it was coming from. It seems like most colleges and universities have at least a couple of ghost stories to tell, and Wichita State University in Kansas is no exception. Tales of mysterious sounds, lights, and figures are commonplace in the older buildings on campus. 2 buildings in particular come up when the campus ghost stories start getting told. Henry Gymnasium and Wilner Auditorium are part of the WSU lore about things that go bump in the night. I love that song from Scooby-Doo. The story of the ghost in Henrian tells of a maintenance worker who was electrocuted on the very job in the 1950s. Details kind of vary. Some say he hit a live wire with his bare head. Another version says that he was hit by lightning while mopping. It's said that his ghost appears in the building in the middle of the night and early in the morning. The auditorium, on the other hand, has gained a reputation for being very haunted. We've got all the usual suspects: flickering lights, doors closing on their own, disembodied voices, and the occasional apparition. A lot of folks have witnessed it. Mary Nelson, a program consultant for the library, says the ghost is likely that of George Wilner, the namesake of the building. She's like, he's probably friendly, just wants to make sure his building is taken care of. Which, I get it. Now also apparently Fisk Hall might be haunted. Since it's the oldest building on campus, it certainly has the history to be a likely place for a haunting. It's been used as a men's dormitory, an infirmary during the influenza situation, and the office space for a lot of different departments. Even investigators from the Wichita Paranormal Research Society picked up the possible presence of a ghostie. We didn't get a name, sadly. I know cemeteries are kind of low-hanging fruit when it comes to being haunted, but let me have this. The Bonaventure Cemetery in Savannah, Georgia is home to a couple of notable ghosties, and I just fell so in love with them today that they had to make my list. Located on the 17-mile-long Wilmington River, some 3 miles down from downtown Savannah, is this fascinatingly beautiful cemetery that has been described as a natural cathedral. Like, come on. You've got these stoic, tall, live oak trees that are just cloaked in Spanish moss. They're all lining the winding paths. It's such a beautifully haunting allure to the many elaborate and time-stained monuments that are throughout this location. To offset the grays and the gloominess are these vibrant azaleas and plenty of other flowers that are just bursting with color when they bloom in the spring and summer. The 100 acres of this special place have stirred the emotions of generations of visitors over quite a few years. But apparently you're gonna feel something stirring you the minute you approach the main gate. And not because of a bran muffin or coffee. A novel that subsequently became a major motion picture that was published in 1994 owes a lot to the cemetery and vice versa. Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil is a first-person account of life in the Old South, interwoven with a mystery that casts Savannah as its backdrop, and features the statue of a girl holding 2 small bowls, one in each hand on the front cover. Legend has it that the statue is haunted by the ghost of Lorraine Greenman, the little one who posed for the artist. Little Wendy, as the statue is also referred to, once stood sentinel over the Trostel fictional family plot, but she became so idolized as a result of her newfound fame, and it wasn't even central to the book's plot, that the owners donated the statue to Savannah's Museum of Art to just avoid destruction and for safety. Another famous sculpture that has elicited some crazy stories or legends, depending on your point of view, is that of Gracie Watson, or as she is affectionately known, Little Gracie. This young one died of pneumonia and was memorialized in marble by artist John Waltz from nothing but a photograph. And for years, people have reported seeing a little one that fits her description playing around. The legend claims that she appears as a normal living one in a white dress who vanishes without a trace when you get too close. And to some, she still lives. Visitors leave toys for her to play with, especially around Christmas time, and if you move them or you take them away, she's gonna cry tears of human redness. So leave her toys alone. Let her play with them. What harm is it doing you? Alright, let's see if I pronounce this properly. Calcasieu Courthouse. I tried, folks, I really did. According to the local parish clerk of courts, the main part of the courthouse building was built in 1912. It is on the National Register of Historic Places, while an addition was tacked on in the mid-90s. A lot of folks believe that the courthouse is haunted, and that the individual whose ghost is doing that haunting is a convicted killer by the name of Toni Jo Henry. She was the only woman to be executed in the electric chair in Louisiana history, unless somebody forgot to put a name down, and it just so happens that the flip of the switch that led to her death happened here. Allow me to give you some context on her. For starters, she didn't really have an easy start in life. Her mother died when she was young, prompting her father to remarry, and Toni was not a fan of the new living arrangement, wanted to go live with an aunt. Why? Well, her dad wasn't great. He hurt her, prompting her to just run away instead. She fell into a world of crime, substances, and intercourse work. She was working at a brothel when she met a man named Claude Cowboy Henry. According to the local Gazette, Henry was a former boxer who, after leaving the ring, found himself living a life of crime. The two fell in love, and the cowboy seems to have treated Toni well. She was in the clutches of substance addiction when they met, but upon marrying, they were like, let's move to California. Let's try and kick that. However, they decided to go back to Texas for a minute, and Cowboy was arrested for a killing that he had committed before the couple had married. And he received a 50-year sentence for his crime. Toni Jo was still madly in love and was like, let's figure out how to get you out of jail. She found herself an accomplice for this plot, a man named Harold Burks, who went by Archie. Burks had served time in the same prison that the cowboy was incarcerated in. And Toni was like, let's use that knowledge. The first step? Let's rob a bank. Because why not? Toni and Burks encountered a man named Joseph P. Calloway, who was delivering a car and was like, okay, I'll give you a ride. According to the local Gazette, they were like, we're gonna hijack this car and use it as a getaway vehicle. But sadly, they killed Calloway. After Toni's arrest, the heinous nature of her crimes, coupled with her good looks and the fact that the death penalty was on the table, her trial became a media sensation. She was found guilty, sentenced to death, which was upheld after several appeals. She was executed in the electric chair on November 28th of 1942. And nowadays, well, her ghost is just hanging around the courthouse. According to various sources, there have been reports of unexplainable screams, electrical mishaps, and the smell of cheap perfume. But there's another odor sometimes reported at the courthouse that is far more disturbing and fitting to the story and death of Toni Jo Henry, the unexplainable smell of burning hair. Alrighty folks, we're gonna end today with the Dock Street Theater in Charleston, South Carolina. This theater, which is not located on Dock Street, but on Church Street, is pretty neat. One quirky fact is that at one time it was actually a hotel. It is now technically the last surviving hotel. Guests of the theater have claimed to see spirits roaming about. We've got sightings of ghostly apparitions in the rafters, apparitions on the stage, and a lot of folks are like, were they failed actors? Were they admirers of the theater? Was there something more tragic? Well, we know there's been a lot of sightings, but there's two particular spirits that have been seen more than any of the others. One of them is believed to be Junius Brutus Booth, the father of the infamous presidential assassin. No one's really sure why his ghost is haunting the theater, because aside from performing there with his theater troupe, and apparently he tried to kill the manager of the hotel, he doesn't have any other strong ties to the building. But the most frequently spotted ghost at this lovely theater is Nettie, who lived in Charleston during the 1800s and could usually be found at the Planters Hotel. She wasn't a guest or a member of the staff, she was a bit of a freelancer. What was her occupation? The world's oldest profession. Poor thing was killed by a bolt of lightning, leading to a sudden and unexpected death, leaving her with unfinished business that I guess nobody's been able to help her with yet. The ghost of Nettie can be seen gliding around aimlessly throughout the entire theater. The ghost of Nettie can be seen gliding around aimlessly throughout the theater. Some of those who have caught a glimpse of her claim that she was wearing a tattered yet vibrantly colored red dress. How fitting. Alrighty everybody, how about we start off today with a place that has been officially marked as the most haunted hotel in the entire United States. I thought you might like that. It's the Mitzpah Hotel, located in Tonopah, Nevada, which is around 200 miles away from Las Vegas. The hotel was a hotspot of celebrities and wealthy investors during the silver boom back in the day, and was one of the first luxury hotels in the entire state. Now these days it's a mixture of modern and antique and is considered America's most haunted lodgings. The Mitzpah and the nearby Melvada building used to share the title of the tallest building in Nevada until 1927. They're only 5 stories tall. The hotel is named after the Mitzpah mine and was the social hub of the town back in the day. Now while the hotel is one of the area's oldest structures, it was predated by the saloon, which opened its doors in 1907. The hotel was financed by George Wingfield, Cal Brugger, George Nixon, and Bob Govan, a few of Nevada's most well-known financiers. The Mitzpah changed hands a couple of times throughout the years until Frank Scott of Las Vegas purchased it in 1979. He updated it to include some modern conveniences, all while preserving the antiquated romance that first drew him and his guests to the hotel in the first place. The hotel's renovation cost about $4 million, and the work took 2.5 years to complete. Now, in 1999, the hotel was shuttered down and it was quiet, frequented only by the spirits that call the town home. But in 2011, the hotel was purchased by Fred and Nancy Klein of Klein Cellars in Sonoma, who renovated and reopened the building to the public in August of the same year. The hotel now boasts 47 rooms, a bar, and 2 restaurants. These days, hotel guests from all over Nevada and the world visit the area, including ghost hunters looking for experiences with the strangeness. They also look, down the street to the Clown Hotel, but don't worry, I'll talk about that in a moment. And the cemetery. I'll get to that. Most importantly, this hotel is home to the Lady in Red and quite a few other unexplained entities. The building is rumored to be completely infested with ghosts, and legends of strange occurrences have been coming out of the hotel since its inception. One especially horrifying story tells of U.S. Senator Key Pittman dying in the hotel in 1940 and being kept on ice in one of the hotel's bathtubs. With the 100 and something years of tough Nevada history, the ghosts have made quite the reputation for themselves. One spirit reported at the Mitzpah Hotel is that of Rose, a lady of the night who met an unfortunate end. Now if you know anything about me, I like a good spooky lady. Guests report her presence after their items mysteriously moved from one place to the other. Rose was a high-class lady that lived on the top floor of the building and met her end by way of hands around her neck, courtesy of a jealous John-turned-lover who wanted her to stop her line of work. She refused and sadly met her fate in the same room guests can now book and spend the night in. Cheers! There's also a nameless soldier who was reported to haunt the 3rd and 4th floors of the hotel. His name is, well, unknown. That's all we know. We just know he died there. We can't forget the pair of ghostly young people who haunt the 3rd floor. They're known to play pranks on the guests and are most often seen in hotel rooms and hallways. Multiple guests have reported hearing giggling and hearing their doors open and shut on their own. Oh, you thought that was all? Not quite. There are also 2 bank robbers who were killed during a heist by their co-conspirator. Their ghosts are said to haunt the basement, giving cold chills and strange sensations to visitors and staff who happen to find themselves there. Before I forget, like I mentioned before, the hotel is very close to the very famous Cursed Clown Motel, which is also supposedly haunted. Legend states that the clown statues act as vessels for the miners' ghosts. They possess the dolls and come to life. Apparitions have been seen walking to and from the graveyard, and disembodied voices have been heard saying, "We mined and we died that day." So hey, stay in Tonopah at your own risk, I suppose. I so want to force a friend of mine to stay at the Clown Hotel with me one day though. I feel like we'd feel so safe there. If you know, you know. We love our clowns. How about we leave the States for a moment and venture over to the Razorback Inn in Picton, Australia. So I learned about this town back when I did a top 5 scary haunted places in Australia. Now while I'm sure every town has its ghost stories and haunted spots, Picton is a little different. This town has apparently more haunted areas per capita than most. It is the most haunted town in all of Australia. This isn't like a self-proclaimed title either, or like an allegedly. It has earned that title. A ghost story sticks out in almost every corner of the town. The inn was built by Oliver Whitting, who was an ex-convict in 1950, and it's believed that his spirit is the main one that now haunts the place. It was first built as a tannery and vineyard, but over the years it has also been used as a guest house, private residence, and restaurant. Nowadays it's part of the Woolaway Woolshed. There are many spooky stories told about the inn. Visitors who stay there have said that they have heard loud noises in the night, and a very loud and noisy ghost is the star of the show. It's a perfect place to stay if you want to go visit the even more haunted Picton Old Main Railway Tunnel, where there are more ghosts than I can count. The most famous of all being that of Emily Ballard, who died in a terrible railway accident. Ghosts for everybody. Alright, back to the USA we go to visit the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel. Seeing as I'm currently planning a trip to California, and I'll be flying in and out of LAX, maybe this will turn into a stop I have to force my friends to make.
week. So Hollywood has long been said to be haunted, not by flops, but by the ghosts of stars who came before us. The Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel, located at 7000 Hollywood Boulevard, figures in many a ghosty tale. The 12-story hotel opened on May 15th of 1927 and has been a staple of Hollywood life since, including hosting the first ever Oscars back in 1929. Marilyn Monroe had a long association with the hotel. She posed for her first print ad, a toothpaste spot, on the diving board of the hotel pool, and as her career took off, she often stayed in a second-floor cabana at the Roosevelt just overlooking the pool. The hotel provided Marilyn with a tall, dark wood-framed full-length mirror, which after her death was moved to the manager's office. A hotel maid was dusting it one day and saw the reflection of a sad-looking blonde woman. She turned to ask if she could help, but there was nobody there. Well, the mirror is no longer in evidence at the Roosevelt. People can stay in the Marilyn Monroe suite, which is overlooking the pool, and it's got some beautiful vintage furniture. Other ghostly guests have also been reported swimming in the pool, by the way. Not surprisingly, this pool has been deemed buzzy with spirit energy according to experts. Another famous Roosevelt guest was 4-time Academy Award nominee Montgomery Clift. He stayed in room 928 for several months while preparing for his role as an Army bugler in the 1953 classic From Here to Eternity. Now, he was considered one of the most talented actors of his generation, and he was a sensitive spirit who battled demons including a variety of substances, a disfiguring car accident, and depression. Guests who have stayed in room 928 report the brooding spirit of Montgomery turning up the heat and switching on the radio to let everybody know he's still around and still angry about an unfulfilled life. The mournful sounds of the method actor playing the bugle are said to echo down the hallway. Look, I know I definitely want to force my friends to tour the Hollywood Forever Cemetery with me, and now this seems like another stop we might have to make. How about we check out another area known for ghosts in the States, the Bourbon Orleans Hotel located in New Orleans. So after 200 years, a blazing fire, a life taken too soon, and a deadly yellow fever epidemic, one shouldn't expect anything less than a haunted nightmare. This hotel is exactly that, but also offers a dose of luxury along with the haunts. First opening as the Orleans Ballroom and Theater in 1815, it was a place for the socialites of Louisiana society to have their luxurious ballroom dances. It was known for the occasional quadroon balls where wealthy Creole men would engage in secretive affairs with women of society. Now, this theater was later bought out by the Sisters of the Holy Family, the first Black Order of nuns, and then served as a school and orphanage for young girls called St. Mary's Academy. It was during this time that one of the worst outbreaks of yellow fever took the lives of several charges and nuns. By the 1960s, the Sisters of the Holy Family had grown to several hundred members and had begun to outgrow the building. So they sold the hotel in 1964 and the Bourbon Orleans was born. Today, the hotel provides guests with all the modern luxuries you could ask for, while giving them a taste of the real New Orleans. A view of the French Quarter, a balcony over the street, and of course, why we're here, ghosts! Now, this place is said to be home to nearly 20 spirits, many of whom died of yellow fever, but there's also the ghost of a Confederate soldier who walks the halls of the hotel, as well as a woman seen dancing under the chandeliers of the ballroom. She dances by herself, but her form indicates that she has some sort of invisible dancing partner. Staff also claim that she hides behind the draperies when she's not dancing, and often shuffles them around to get a rise out of the guests. Some folks even claim to see a pool of redness on the ballroom floor, rumored to be a remnant of a duel between two men who had an argument over a woman. Now, whether or not the woman under the chandelier is the one they fought over has yet to be determined. Rumors also say that a nun took her own life in room 644, and her screams can still be heard to this day. Guests who stay in that room often report being woken up by a nun standing over the bed in the middle of the night. The apparitions of young people praying and nuns watching over them have been seen by many guests and staff, and some guests have reported hearing the laughter and pitter-patter playing in the halls, and others claim to feel small people like tugging on their clothes. Oh, and before I forget, the ghost of a girl chasing after her ball is often seen on the 6th floor. Alrighty, how about we end today with a Canadian location, the Banff Springs Hotel. It has a pretty neat history since it opened in 1888 during the construction of the Canadian Pacific Railway. It's really pretty, but there's one room that visitors should be aware of. Room 873, or well, lack thereof. As the story goes, decades ago a family was killed in this room, and after a lengthy investigation, the room was refurbished and booked out to travelers. Soon after, reports of disturbances flooded the front desk. The legend claims that guests would fall asleep in the room only to be awoken by hollow screams, and when the lights were turned on, they would be startled to find red-stained handprints on the mirrors inside the room. So by the time staff could rush to the room to investigate, the prints would have disappeared. So in efforts to cover up the horrific tale, it was decided the room would be sealed off. The doors removed, the opening was covered with drywall, and it was made to match the rest of the hallway. So it's undeniable that something has happened to this room, and the staff of the hotel are forced to give overly rehearsed answers when asked about it, so like don't bother them. But let's review what we do know. There are rooms ending in 73 on each floor, and a room is located on the floor above and below the missing room on the 8th floor. If you head down the hallway, there are only lights above each doorway. There is one above, well, there used to be one above where the missing room's door would be, in the middle of the hallway. The baseboard is cut where the door would have been, and when you knock along the walls, you'll notice they are made of thick plaster. So as you knock down the hall on the 8th floor, it suddenly changes to a hollow sound right below where the light was, where the door to room 873 would have existed, and it continues for the length of a standard doorway. Back in 2017, the wall was replastered again in hopes to cover up the last remains of the once existing entrance, and the light was removed. But the history remains on the interwebs with photos to prove it. This first spooky story came to us courtesy of former late-night transportation worker Betty. Now, she worked the position for a couple of years, but after this incident, did everything possible to never work a nighttime shift ever again. So, the transport home base was in the basement of a hospital, which is where all the laundry was done and all the supplies were sorted and housed. And on this particular night, Betty was the only one in the basement when she heard whistling at the end of the hallway, over by the elevator. So she poked her head around the corner, expecting to see like her one coworker on duty, but there was nobody there. So she shrugged it off. She's like, okay, he's pulling a fast one on me. Now that night in particular was a little slower in pace, so she opted to take a snack break and veg in the break room for a bit, when she heard a loud bang out of nowhere. She walked into the hallway and a bed was rolling down the hall, bumping into the sides. Now at this point, she was absolutely certain that this coworker was playing a prank on her, and she directly radioed to chew him out, but he swore he was upstairs. Look, I'd be assuming the same. I've had a similar situation in a haunted house I used to work in. Whole thing. So Betty was smart about it, and she's like, okay, if you're not gonna fess up, I'm gonna catch you in the act. So she walked down the hallway, and as she passed the laundry room, all of the machines started up. Now, she poked her head in, she's like, okay, I gotcha. But the room was empty. You know, just a little red flag, nothing to worry about, right? Well, as she walked into the laundry room, the machines came to a complete stop. Now, Betty froze at first before regaining her senses and making her way towards the elevator, when she heard whistling once again from the other end of the hall. Now, at this point, she's pretty sure she's the only worker in the basement, and she's hitting every elevator button, like, okay, get me out of here, get me out of here. And as she was waiting for the elevator, things started falling off of the shelves, like all down the hall. She could only stare in shock as boxes of gloves, tissues, packages of tubes all fell off of various racks one by one. Her entire body broke out into goosebumps, every hair was standing on its end, and the feeling of being watched had completely consumed her thoughts. When the elevator finally arrived, after what seemed like forever, she felt the sensation of someone brushing her arm and screamed in panic. Upon exiting the elevator upstairs, she made a beeline for the cafeteria, where her coworker actually was, and broke down explaining the entire ordeal. Well, fun fact about this spirit was actually a mimic. It turns out that Betty usually whistles to herself at work at night. She chats with the laundry folks if she's there during the day, and the items that fell off the shelf were items that she normally has to retrieve. Absolutely not. Never working night shift. How about we check out the lower levels of a castle next? And not just any castle, good old Casa Loma. If a place has secret tunnels, then chances are there's gonna be a couple of ghosties roaming around. Because tunnels, underground, ergo, basements. Now, I think this castle has a stern-looking old man gazing out from a window, who's probably Sir Henry Pellet, the castle's original owner. There's a British redcoat in the stables, and a lady in white walking the halls, and also like some knocking in the tunnel. Sounds like a party. So the lady in white is believed to be a maid who worked there in the early 1900s, around the time when about 60,000 people in Toronto died of influenza. She's been seen in a lot of places by guests, or by cleaning or cafeteria staff, just hanging out. I love a good ghosty lady. Poltergeists have been reported numerous times in upper levels, but mainly in the basement. Turns out the castle offers ghost tours, led by Canada's Most Haunted. We've had stories going on in here since the 1930s when the Kiwanis Club took over the castle, according to Michelle DeRoche, the paranormal rep for the castle. So there's been plenty of Casa Loma ghost stories that pop up from time to time, such as the appearance of a man tending to the garden in the indoor conservatory, or the sound of young people's voices when no young folks are around. Few stories, however, are reported time and time again by different people. A woman believed to be Lady Mary has been spotted on the ground, although she's pretty elusive. At one point, the Canada's Most Haunted team attempted to film her room, leaving a camera running while they explored other parts of the castle, and when they got back to check the footage, the tape was gone. According to mediums who claim to have felt the presence of Sir Henry and Lady Mary, their spirits are not trapped there. They just want to be there, because, well, it's their home. The tunnel leading to the castle stables is where another of its most notorious ghosts is believed to roam, and that's why we're talking about basements today. A lot of folks have reported feeling as though they've been grabbed, they've had their hair pulled, which, no thank you. People have also reported hearing the spirit, sighing gruffly, and he's even been captured in recordings, speaking and interacting with visitors. In one recording, he mimicked a medium, who was like, oh, he's a horrible person. Well, the medium just wanted to make contact. Little rude, though. Evidence points to the voice belonging to the ghost of a friend of Sir Henry's, who was hired to look after the prize-winning horses. Guess it's time to check in with some friends who have worked events at Casa Loma. See if they've met anybody. Granted, I don't ever want to go near the basement of that place. Another classic option, a haunted church basement. Specifically the most holy Trinity Church in New York, built sometime between 1882 to 1885 on land that previously served as a graveyard. According to local rumors, not all the bodies residing there were exhumed, and the spirits of those left behind still inhabit the grounds to this day. The church covers an entire city block, and it is said that there are false closets leading to bricked up doorways, tunnels, and random sub-basements throughout the church and convent. There's also mysterious passageways on the upper levels of the church where legend says only priests are able to enter. Now, the church's rectory was built in 1872 by its second pastor, Monsignor Mckamey, who later passed in his room on the second floor. Priests who live in the rectory have used that space for mainly a guest room ever since, because nobody really wants to live in it on an ongoing basis. Guests have experienced lights being switched off and on, hearing strange noises, and the sound of a person walking back and forth while trying to sleep. Phantom footsteps have also been heard on the staircases in the building, and the dogs who were once kept as pets in the rectory would stare in a trance-like state down the basement stairs, as well as into the dining room where the building got cold. In 1897, a parish bell ringer named George Steltz, had his life taken in the vestibule of the church. Granted, there was a suspect, but nobody was ever convicted of the crime. The red fluids of George, as well as the red-handed print of the killer, is believed to still be on the wall in a stairway leading to the bell tower. George's ghostie still roams the church and is believed to be the reason why the bells will ring suddenly, vowing not to leave until his death has been solved. Honestly, just burn the entire place. This next experience is courtesy of Redditor Camel Cove Sniper. His buddy's old house was haunted. People would always hear footsteps, creaking floors, but they would also see this mysterious dark figure on the house. So, one night, our buddy's over there, he's got a whole group of friends over, and the guy who actually lives there is like, okay, I dare anybody to go into the basement. Well, seeing as Camo was the only one who didn't experience anything until that point, he's like, okay, I'll do it. He got down there, waited for 2 minutes, and just as he was about to leave, he saw a shadow in the corner of his left eye. Now, he snapped to his left and saw a large looming figure. It seemed devoid of anything or any presence other than the cold that came over Camo's body, and as soon as he saw it, his hairs jumped to a stand on his neck. He froze, just staring at the unknown. The feeling was so surreal that Camo still can't put it into words. Then his heart pumped super fast, his body got really warm, everything in his head was just going danger, 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 danger. So he turned to his right, ran towards the stairs, and looked back for half a second, and then realized this thing, whatever it was getting even closer. So then he ran. He just ran like the wind, jumped up the stairs, ran to the first floor, and hid behind an armchair, just staring. Everybody else was like, yo, dude, what's wrong? He pointed, and then everybody looked and saw, that thing had made it to almost the top of the stairs from the basement. So everybody booked it towards the balcony, jumped into the backyard. They looked up, expecting to see it standing there, but nothing was there. Just the thing didn't leave the basement. Creepy. Now, our Camo didn't go near the basement ever again. And this final scary experience comes courtesy of 7-time Mama Bear. So when she was still married to her military husband, he was overseas and she moved the family into a 100-year or so old house. She was renting, it was wonderful, it was in a rural area with a huge yard, but the only one little teensy-weensy problem was that it had mysterious happenings. One of the things that Mama soon learned that happened on a regular basis was the knocker. So, for context, the basement of the house was very dark, very damp, pretty normal for a house, and like most families, she kept the washer, the dryer, and the deep freezer in the basement. So she had to venture down there pretty often. But she never allowed her descendants down due to the dark, the dampness. She wanted to keep them safe. And the only entrance to the basement was a door located in the kitchen, which was right next to the back door, which also in the kitchen. Pretty typical layout. Not long after the family moved in, Mama heard knocking on the back door. She's like, oh, must be a neighbor. Went to go answer it, but as she got closer to the door, she realized, oh, it's not the back door. It was the basement door. Now, she knew her offspring were in the living room, and she couldn't figure out who would be in the basement, so she opened the door. Nobody's there. And this went on to occur on a regular basis. At least once a week she heard the knocker. And she asked the neighbors, she asked the person who owned the property, they knew nothing. So, as one does, she's decorating the house. She hangs up a picture of her and her husband on the wall by the front door. Very cute, very sweet, very fitting for a military family. And many, many, many mornings, she would come down to find it either hanging upside down, lying on the floor beneath one of the chairs or sofa. She would replace it, leave it at that, but it was weird that only that photo was being targeted. So, fast forward, we got a random weekend, her parents come to visit. They're sitting in the living room and suddenly, here comes the knocking on the basement door. She tried to ignore it, but her mother was like, hey, don't be rude, let's go answer it. Now, Mama was following through being like, look, Mom, you're not gonna wanna do it. But her mom was like, you're rude. So she opens the door and there's nobody there. So what happened? Well, she stalked back into the living room, picked up her purse, and as she was going out the door, she told her husband, "Yeah, I'll be in the car." He drove her the 3 hours home and she refused to ever come back. Another time, after Mama's husband returned from overseas, they had guests, once again, sitting in the living room, hanging out. Suddenly, the husband stopped talking and he was staring at the wall next to the front door. He said, "Get the offspring. It's time to go home." Now, Mama followed his stare to the front door and realized that the photo was slowly turning upside down. There were other strange occurrences, and it soon became pretty apparent that whatever it was didn't like her husband at all. He called the entity Hardy, and yeah. I know they did leave that house. I know they did divorce. Oh, I don't want to go into that home ever.
Alright, I think I'm going to kick off today with a case from Detroit, Michigan. The mystery of the disappearance of Phyllis Ann Flynn is one that lingers, casting a shadow over the years that have passed since that fateful night in May of 1988, which was before I was born. It's a puzzle that has defied resolution, leaving family and investigators grasping at straws in their quest for answers. After a birthday celebration at the Hotel Yorba in Detroit, Flynn vanished without a trace. The circumstances surrounding her disappearance are as mysterious as the hotel itself. She had requested that her father pick her up, a plea that would echo throughout the years as a haunting reminder of the unanswered questions. Now, the timeline of events is hauntingly sparse. A few days after her birthday, Flynn called home, signaling her desire to be retrieved from the Hotel Yorba. However, when her father arrived, she had evaporated into thin air, leaving behind an eerie void, and nobody has heard from her since. In the years that followed, the case went cold, a perplexing enigma with no breakthroughs. The detective assigned to Flynn's case retired, and the shadows seemed to close in on the scant leads. But even as the official investigation drew to a close, a glimmer of hope persisted among those determined to unravel the mystery. A family friend and a diligent Michigan State police detective breathed some new life into the cold case back in 2014, so about a decade ago, reigniting the flame of inquiry. The Community United Effort Center for Missing Persons brought national attention to Flynn's disappearance, thrusting it into the spotlight of awareness-building efforts. The passage of time has not dimmed the resolve of those seeking closure. The Missing in Michigan campaign, led by Detective Sarah Krebs, has tirelessly worked to unearth fresh clues. The story of Phyllis Flynn found its place on billboards, a visual plea for information that could hopefully pierce through the fog of uncertainty. But to this day, the question remains: what happened at the Hotel Yorba? The void left by Flynn's disappearance resonates, a silent call for answers. The reward offered by Crime Stoppers of Michigan stands as an incentive, a monetary beacon beckoning anybody with information to step forward. But with the passage of 36 years, the harsh reality is lingering. Flynn's family, against the odds, clings to hope that she might still be alive. But sadly, the Hotel Yorba, once a backdrop to a birthday celebration, now stands as a silent witness to a disappearance that continues to baffle those who seek resolution. So I don't exactly have a name for this next hotel, outside of knowing that it's somewhere in the UK. I know, vague, but it was worth telling today. Imagine a place shrouded in whispers and veiled in the unknown. A hotel that, over the years, has become an unsettling enigma, a backdrop to a haunting mystery that eludes comprehension. It's not your typical story. It's a tale woven with threads of uncertainty and shadowed by the inexplicable disappearances of 66 young people. Nestled in the heart of the countryside, this hotel, with its weathered facade, stands as a testament to a history stained by the unexplained. The corridors echo with the distant laugh of young people who once roamed freely, their footsteps now silenced by a force that transcends the boundaries of our understanding. The first whispers of the mystery dates way back, like decades, a quiet murmur amongst locals who traded stories of curious occurrences. As time unfolded, so did the tales of the vanished youths, leaving a chilling imprint on the history of this seemingly ordinary establishment. Each disappearance, if we're going to compare it to something, maybe a jigsaw piece missing from a larger puzzle, paints a spectral image of uncertainty. The missing people, diverse in their backgrounds, ages, and stories, all converge at this point, their common thread being a vanishing act that perplexes even the most seasoned investigators. The authorities, puzzled and haunted by the lack of clues, have combed through the hotel's history, interviewed witnesses, scrutinized every nook and cranny, but they've got nothing. The answers remain elusive, like ghosts slipping through the fingers of those who seek them. The hotel itself, with its creaking floorboards and flickering lights, becomes a stage where the mundane collides with the mysterious. An invisible hand seems to orchestrate a malevolent symphony, leaving behind a disconcerting silence in the wake of each disappearance. The local community, once welcoming, now gazes upon the hotel with a mix of fear and curiosity. Whispers in the wind suggest that the place holds secrets, that it harbors an otherworldly energy, indifferent to the laws of our reality. As the count of those who have vanished climbed, the hotel's reputation transformed. It became more than bricks and mortar. It was just this living, breathing entity with a story. The rooms, once filled with the innocent laughter of youth, now resonate with an eerie stillness,
a reminder of those who stepped into the shadows and never returned. Yeah, that's not somewhere I want to visit. No thank you, I'll leave the mysteries there. I don't need to unravel them. Now next up we have a legend that I believe to be true. Many years ago, an English woman and her daughter, at the conclusion of a tour in the Near East, arrived at a Paris hotel at the time of the exhibition. They were given separate rooms, one above the other. Trust me, I wouldn't want to be in the same room as my mother. After resting for a few hours, the daughter went to go see her mother, but the room was empty and completely altered. Like new wallpaper, new furniture, new everything. She was panicking, she called the maid and then the manager, and the manager was like, "You're under a delusion. When you arrived at this hotel, you were quite alone." But the girl was like, "No, we signed our names in the visitor's book, mother and I." So they brought out the visitor's book, and above the daughter's name, what the mother had signed, was a signature of a stranger. Now, it wasn't until about a year later that the daughter learned that her mother had died suddenly of the plague, and that in order to save Paris from, crazy panic and the exhibition from absolute ruin, it was hurriedly agreed by the authorities that the death should be completely hushed up, and that the daughter should be made to believe, by the repeated denials of hotel servants, hotel managers, and cabmen, and the proofs of, the changed room and the altered visitor's book, that her unfortunate mother never reached the hotel. Imagine, you go to take a nap and you wake up and all of a sudden, okay, mom's gone, and you're Delulu. The girl allegedly found out the truth in a letter from a chambermaid. So when the story was originally told at a dinner at the house of Arthur Balfour, at the time, British Prime Minister, they were all hanging out, and Balfour was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna guess the ending." Now, a journalist for the Pall Mall Gazette, I think this was around 1913, talked to the author who originally published the tale, a Mr. Clement K. Shorter, noting by this time, of course, we've all heard the story. What's the truth to it? And Mr. Shorter's like, "No, I believe it happened. It is a heck of a lot easier to believe that it happened than it was invented." And given an illness under precisely the same circumstances, the French police authorities are like the only police authorities in the world who are equal to coping with it so brilliantly. I can't imagine waking up and being told, "Hey, you're completely wrong." No thank you. Now for a tale that cursed me to my core, Liz, Sarah, and the Cosmos Resort. 2 years ago, a seemingly ordinary vacation turned into a nightmarish odyssey for a pair of friends, Liz and Sarah. The backdrop? A hotel that, despite its outward appearance of renovation and cheerfulness, concealed a darkness that would shake the very core of their existence. So the girls went in the lobby, they're like, "Okay, we're gonna go sign in." But there was this feeling of unease that was just sort of everywhere in the air. The check-in process was marked by odd glances and a peculiar conversation with the hotel staff. But they got upgraded. Woohoo! Room 347. This room with a view that won Sarah over. Seemed like, okay, things are getting better. Maybe my gut's just off. Maybe I need a nap. The first night was uneventful for Sarah, but for Liz, the shadows whispered secrets that kept her awake. Strange scratching noises emanated from behind the walls, which, yikes, that's not a soundtrack I want when I'm trying to sleep. And it only got worse as the days went on. A hidden door, concealed behind a nightstand, revealed a narrow, ominous space that reeked of rust and bleach. Yeah, that's terrifying. As Sarah delved deeper into the mystery, she discovered a network of tunnels, a dark labyrinth that extended beneath the hotel. The eerie passageways, laden with the stench of decay, hinted at a sinister purpose, one that became much more apparent as time went on. Liz's disappearance on the final night of their stay plunged Sarah into a desperate search for answers. The hotel staff's nonchalant response and the dismissive attitude of the police created an air of conspiracy. Sure, because the hidden door that led to under the hotel with the stench of decay wasn't enough. Determined to unravel the enigma, Sarah returned to the haunted hotel, guided by an invitation that seemed to taunt her, if you will. The nights after became a harrowing exploration of the hotel's hidden layers. The H sections, neglected and avoided, hinted at a malevolence that defied, my brain. The discovery of a bricked-up elevator shaft and the disturbing encounters in the narrow tunnels hinted at a malevolent force that lurked within the hotel's very foundation. So, fast forward, it's the final night, and in a desperate attempt to retrace Liz's steps, Sarah was led to an encounter with entities that, weren't of this world. Liz, or a distorted version of her, beckoned from the shadows. The nightmarish entities, with eyes that pierced the darkness, pursued Sarah through the dilapidated corridors, transforming the once grand ballroom into a grotesque spectacle. Now this whole mess reached its climax on the mysterious 7th floor. The revelation that Liz's encounter in the tunnel had birthed something malevolent. Something that wore her face, but harbored unspeakable horrors. Yeah, it painted a bit of a grim picture. The hotel's twisted reality, where time and space lost coherence, left poor Sarah grappling with a profound sense of dread. Now, this sad story concludes with Sarah's escape, but the psychological scars, they run deep. The fear of encountering those otherworldly entities, of witnessing the distorted face of Liz, that's gonna linger like a memory you don't want to have. The hotel, now a malevolent entity in its own right, kind of stands as a thin veil that separates our world from the other world. And not one you want to go near. Time to travel over to the heart of Santa Fe, and no, that isn't a cue for Newsies or Rent fans, so hush. Nestled within the walls of the La Posada Hotel lies a tale that, it's gonna give you some nightmares, folks. It's a narrative steeped in mystery, spectral apparitions, and unexplained phenomena. cool, we got the whole trifecta. Room 256, once the abode of Julia Staub, echoes with the whispers of a bygone era, where the living and the dead seem to converge in a dance of the paranormal. Is it a ballet? So Chuck Barone, a vigilant security guard, recounted an eerie encounter that unfolded in this specific room of the hotel. In the company of a bellhop and a group of tourists, they approached said room 256, responding to a mysterious voice emanating from within. "I'm in here," it beckoned, yet upon investigation, the room was empty, with its windows locked from the inside, so there was no getting out of there. There was a phantom presence. Unseen, but you felt it. The paranormal enigma extended way beyond Chuck's story, by the way. His son John, a fellow guardian of the hotel secrets, if you will, witnessed a ghostly face in the men's room mirror. It was a woman's face, staring back at him, sending a shiver right down his spine, and this inexplicable encounter left him pale and shaken, which, yeah, that tracks. Ross Weisenhoff, once a skeptic, found himself entangled in the spectral tapestry of the hotel as well. Awakening in the middle of the night, he noticed a luminescent figure at the foot of his bed. This entity morphed into the ethereal form of a woman, fixating on him with an otherworldly gaze. Now, this encounter shattered his skepticism, prompting a swift, "I'm getting out of here," as you do. The genesis of these ghostly manifestations lies in the tragic history of Julia, the lady of the mansion turned spectral hostess. She was once the vibrant center of Santa Fe's social tapestry, but fell into self-imposed exile after the loss of her 8th spawn. The Grand Mansion, a testament to love and opulence, transformed into the La Posada Hotel in 1936. Enter Christopher Chacon, a seeker of truth from the Organization of Scientific Investigation and Research. Alongside a team of experts, he delved into the paranormal intricacies of the hotel. Physical, psychological, and electrical examinations were conducted, leaving no stone unturned. 12 hours in isolation within the bedroom that's, doing all the bad things, monitoring the environment for any spectral stirrings. Infrared technology and night vision equipment were brought in, but despite the diligence, the source of the haunting remained elusive. Which, okay, we'll let you be. Ghosty ladies can do what you want. I would like to live. Number 5, Mckamey Manor. Alrighty, before someone yells at me, yes, this place does market themselves as a haunted house, or to quote the founder Russ, a survival horror performance house. But since they're currently offering 20 grand to anyone who can survive 10 hours of their games, I'm considering them eligible for today's list. Granted, if you curse or fail a challenge, $500 gets removed each time. And I've also had a personal vendetta against them for about 10 years now, and that's about to come into play. So founder Russ Mckamey, a former Navy seaman turned haunted attraction enthusiast, doesn't accept any kind of money for this unique experience. Payment is simply, a can or a bag of dog food. There is a screening process first. Participants must produce a doctor's note, sign a 40-page waiver, pass a background check and drug test, and be screened via FaceTime. A guide has testified that the 40-page waiver signed by participants lists possible risks, which include having teeth extracted, being tattooed, and having fingernails removed. If I didn't already hate the place enough, that does it for me. That's just unnecessary torment. It originally operated in San Diego, but neighbors petitioned to have it run out of the area due to the noise and unsafe attention it brought them, and were successful. There's a total of 3 locations now: Nashville, Tennessee, and Huntsville, Alabama. At the Tennessee location, guests must be 21 or older, or 18 to 20 with parental consent, while the Alabama location only allows ages 21 or up. The tour lasts from 8 to 10 hours, but no guest has made it all the way through. Mckamey originally did not allow safe words for the tour, but has since reportedly allowed them, with guests having the option to use a safe word that ends the experience immediately. The house operates year-round, and there is allegedly a waiting list of over 24,000 people. I just want to know why. During the experience, employees of the manor may physically attack patrons, waterboard them, force them to eat and drink unknown substances, have them bound and gagged, and engage in other forms of physical and psychological anguish. I'm forgetting something. Don't remind me. Oh yeah, participants may also be during their experience. And hey, if that wasn't enough ick for anyone, make sure to smile for the camera while you're enduring this hell. Yeah, Mckamey started filming everything that happened inside as an insurance policy, so he'd have proof of what really happened anytime law enforcement came knocking. Nowadays, each contestant's experience is live streamed to a Facebook audience of close to 30,000 people. If that's your idea of entertainment, there's a large archive of footage on the official website. So far, no one's been able to escape, and I'm pretty sure everyone leaves with some sort of imprint on their psyche, so big pass from me. Number 4, Eloise Asylum. Eloise Psychiatric Hospital was a large complex located in Westland, Michigan that operated from 1839 to early 1982. It started out as a poorhouse and farm. It eventually developed into an asylum, sanatorium, and hospital. It's had a lot of names over the years, so bear with me here. In 1832, it was called the Wayne County Poorhouse. In 1872, it was the Wayne County Almshouse, while in 1886, it was referred to simply as the Wayne County House. In 1913, there were 3 divisions: the Eloise Hospital, which housed the mental hospital, the Eloise Infirmary or the poorhouse, and the Eloise Sanatorium, which housed patients with tuberculosis, and all three were collectively called Eloise. Oh, and that's not the end of the name changes. In 1945, it was named Wayne County General Hospital and Infirmary at Eloise, Michigan. By 1974, it had two divisions, separating the Wayne County Psychiatric Hospital from the General Hospital. In 1979, it was officially called Wayne County General Hospital, with the psychiatric division closing in 1982. In its heyday, Eloise was made up of 78 buildings on 902 acres with 10,000 patients along with 2,000 staff, serving as the largest psychiatric facility in the entire United States. Only the firehouse, power plant, commissary, and D buildings still stand as of July of 2023, as well as the cemetery. It had some good things back in the day, housing the first kidney dialysis unit in the state of Michigan and pioneering the use of music therapy. Staff also used hydrotherapy, shock therapy, and insulin therapy to treat patients. As years went on, the institution grew larger and larger, a reflection in the increases in the population of the Detroit area. From only 35 residents in 1839, the complex grew to, like I said, about 10,000 folks at its peak during the Great Depression. Now to talk about ghosties. My favorite part. Numerous typical poltergeist activities have been witnessed within the complex, with doors slamming and medical carts and tables being overturned. Generally speaking, there are shadow figures that seemingly drip from the ceilings and ooze from the walls of this place, becoming part of the building itself until they're one and the same. Two ghostly little ones have been seen running through the paint-peeling walls of the hallways, turning a corner only to disappear. It's assumed they were inmates at the time Eloise was a poorhouse, where orphans often lived until they were adopted out or passed away. So these two possibly died in their youth, or maybe they relive their lives now without the fear they had when they were alive, carelessly playing games in a kind of purgatory. There's a mysterious lady that appears as a white vapor and has been seen manifesting within one of the buildings that still stand, and her voice has been recorded as she whispers, "Help me." Another ghost is that of a doctor, said to prowl the halls of the crumbling facility. Even in the afterlife, he searches for an unfortunate patient to practice his scientific methods. Some have reported seeing a specter drenched in water, possibly a reminder of when hydrotherapy was coming into practice. Other times the ghostie is seen wearing a smock stained in red, presumed to be from a lobotomy. Possibly he lingers here, tormented by the ghosts of the patients upon whom he practiced. Nowadays, this building is home to two different escape rooms, one titled The Heist, and the other is aptly called Escape the Asylum. If you feel like risking the wrath of the ghosts, that's on you. Number 3, 13 Seta Avenue. This is the only Canadian entry on today's list, and apparently it's the scariest escape room in the entire greater Toronto area. Time to tell if my courage will kick in and motivate me to go check it out. So rumor has it, everyone who's experienced this particular escape room has experienced some sort of paranormal activity, which could be my cup of tea as long as it doesn't involve a Ouija board or spirits that follow me home. So according to the website, it is described as a group daring to venture through an abandoned house turns into a horrifying nightmare when you quickly realize it's not abandoned at all. So it's just a sick game, and you are the main attraction. You'll have to work together and overcome all the challenges. Watch out, not all groups make it out together. Now here's the haunted element. Some parts of the internet have listed it as running, while the official website changes depending on the day, on if it's still existing or not. Try and register if you dare. Who knows if you'll live to tell the tale. Number 2, Franklin County Historic Jail. Allegedly, the old Franklin County Jail is one of the most haunted locations in south central Pennsylvania and once housed quite the notorious prisoner. 1920s gangster Charlie Berger was held at the Franklin County Jail from June of 1927 to April of 1928, where he went the way of the rope necklace for the death of Joe Adams along with a plethora of other crimes. While he isn't the only ghostie that likes to hang out at the jail, apparently he can be spotted skulking around where he met the end of his time. Overall activity that has been reported includes shadows, mysterious noises, disembodied moans, being physically touched, and feelings of tension in certain areas. Time for a history lesson though. In the early 1700s, the land that would become Franklin County was settled and traveled by Native Americans, including the Iroquois, the Lenape, and the Shawnee. Treaties resulted in the land being settled by the English after the French and Indian War. In 1818, the Franklin County Jail was constructed to house criminals and those condemned to the gallows. The basement was used as a dungeon, where the condemned were often shackled, physically punished, or killed prior to their date with the noose in the courtyard. In 1862, as the nearby shops were all burned, the Franklin Jail remained untouched. The jail escaped damage again when Confederate General Robert E. Lee and 70,000 soldiers took up residence nearby, and once again in 1864, as a significant portion of Chambersburg was burned, the jail remained unscathed. If I had a nickel for everything I just thought was mighty suspicious, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. At least 7 known souls met their end at the gallows, and many more were subjected to inhumane treatment in the basement. Areas known to be haunted in the old prison include the old doctor's office, where spirits are known to recount their tales of poor treatment, the old cells where orbs have a habit of appearing in photos near certain names and dates etched into the walls, but the worst is the tension and cold felt in the basement where so many endured horrors and met their end. Nowadays, folks can get a feel of the life, behind its real prison bars thanks to the escape room on site. Prisoners are locked in the lower jail block cell and have to use puzzle-solving tactics in order to break out. And like most game rooms, they have 60 minutes to escape. Good luck! Number 1. Shepton Mallet Prison. So this prison is widely recognized as the most haunted prison in the world, and one of the most haunted locations in the UK. It was built in 1610 and became known as the oldest prison in the United Kingdom. Behind its walls, prisoners would frequently die of illnesses because medical treatment was sadly overlooked. Death sentences were frequently carried out, with the latest happening in 1945 under the direct order of the military. So it didn't actually close until 2013, so I think it's the most recently converted location on our list today. In the 1970s, the Home Office was requested to investigate some strange happenings in one of the wings. An increase in prisoners requesting additional bedding due to a cold drop was becoming an issue, and the occasional smell of sweet perfume would waft around the prison. Prisoners were becoming uncomfortable in their cells, and officers started to refuse working the night shifts. So the office carried out a 3-day investigation, and the results remained inconclusive. As the years passed, new reports were coming in that the draughts would continue, as would the smell of sweet perfume. Some night officers would report seeing shadows and white figures standing on the stairs. The story of the White Lady was revealed after some research. So she had killed her husband and was brought to the prison for her final days before meeting her end in the town center. The night before her execution, she was offered her final request and asked to wear her wedding dress. The morning of her execution, the door to her cell swung open, and to the surprise of the officers, her lifeless body laid on the bed, dressed in the gown. No marks were found, and it was concluded that she must have died of a broken heart. She is said to still wander the wings and has been reported to be seen on multiple occasions. And if she isn't seen, the smell of a sweet perfume has been reported to linger in the prison wing. So the prison now advertises the escape room as a team building behind bars, where visitors learn the full details of the corrupt events that happened within the prison walls and then try their hand at escaping themselves. Yeah, no thanks.
At number 5, the Ohio State Reformatory. The Ohio State Reformatory, a haunting architectural marvel that carries within its walls the echoes of a troubled past. Constructed in the late 19th century, this imposing Victorian Gothic structure was initially intended to embody progressive correctional ideals. However, over time, it became synonymous with stories of despair, shuddering, and unexplained phenomena, solidifying its reputation as one of the most haunted places in the United States. The Reformatory's history is rife with tales of harsh conditions, overcrowding, and the struggles of those who were incarcerated within its confines. These factors, coupled with the tragic stories of inmates who lived and died there, have contributed to the pervasive sense of unease that envelops the site. Visitors often report strange occurrences, such as unexplained footsteps echoing through the empty halls, eerie whispers that seem to float on the air, and chilling cold spots that hint at otherworldly presences. In some cases, there have even been disappearances and killings, alluding to the dark spectral forces that inhabit the Reformatory. One of the most famous aspects of the Ohio State Reformatory is its appearance in the movie The Shawshank Redemption. While the film highlighted the Reformatory's grim atmosphere, its true history is far richer and more complex. The architecture itself tells a tale of a bygone era, with its intricate detailing and imposing structure standing as a stark contrast to the stories of suffering that unfolded within its walls. Guided tours and events at the Reformatory allow visitors to explore its various sections, from the imposing cell blocks to the eerie solitary confinement area, known as the Hole, creating an immersive experience that evokes a sense of timelessness. The stark contrast between the ornate exterior and the haunting interior serves as a poignant reminder of the complex and often troubling history that defines the Reformatory. While some may dismiss claims of paranormal activity as mere superstition, the stories and experiences recounted by those who have visited the Ohio State Reformatory are difficult to ignore. The combination of a somber history, decaying architecture, and the mysterious ambience that permeates the air makes for an unforgettable experience that lingers long after the visit is over. Number 4. Molly Stark Sanatorium. The former Molly Stark Hospital, located in Molly Stark Park in Ohio, is a haunting relic of a bygone era. Once a treatment center for tuberculosis patients, the decaying building exudes a ghoulish aura, with vines snaking over ancient brick, shattered windows, and faded stone. Closed for over 2 decades, the hospital's dilapidated state has attracted ghost hunters and paranormal enthusiasts, leading to the erection of a barbed wire fence to deter trespassers. Owned by the Stark Stark County Park District, the property offers public tours to its exterior, revealing intricate architectural details and a fascinating history. The hospital, originally constructed in 1929 at a cost of around $1 million, treated tuberculosis patients until the 1970s, and later served as a mental health facility and a rehabilitation center for those suffering with addiction. The tour provides insights into the hospital's architectural flourishes, including a portico and stone-carved religious symbols, reflective of the faith that played a role in caring for those afflicted by tuberculosis. The hospital's conditions quickly began to decline in the mid-1970s, after reports of ghost sightings within the hospital. Patients and staff alike bore witness to the likes of victims of tuberculosis, despite the fact that treatment for the illness was invented 20 years prior. These now-deceased patients were known to disrupt medical examinations, cause mass hysteria among patients and staff, and even cause many disappearances within the hospital. The amount of distress these apparitions caused eventually led to the hospital's closure in 1995. Nowadays, the site's haunted reputation draws curiosity seekers, but the tour focused mostly on the building's history rather than the many ghosts that still scuffle about the old hospital. And number 3, South Base Island Lighthouse. Perched atop the rugged cliffs of South Base Island in Picton Bay, the historic lighthouse stands as both a beacon of maritime history and a portal to a realm of ghostly legends. The South Base Island Lighthouse, with its iconic red brick tower and majestic views of Lake Erie, cast a haunting silhouette against the ever-changing skies, drawing visitors from far and wide who seek to unravel the mysteries that have enshrouded this hallowed site for decades. Built in 1897, the South Base Island Lighthouse served as a vital navigational aid for ships traversing the treacherous waters of Lake Erie. Its light guided sailors through storms and fog, ensuring safe passage to the shores. However, as time marched on and technology advanced, the lighthouse's significance diminished, eventually leading to its decommissioning in the mid-20th century. But as darkness descends upon the island, the lighthouse takes on an air of malevolence. The wind howls like the mournful wails of lost souls, while the crashing waves below create a symphony of despair. Those brave enough to step inside confront an unsettling stillness, punctuated only by the occasional creak of floorboards under an invisible, unrelenting force. Phantom shadows dance along the walls. There are ethereal forms casting an ominous dance that defies explanation. Visitors recount harrowing tales of icy fingers brushing against their skin, of ghostly whispers that worm their way into their minds, and of an overpowering sense of dread that lingers long after they've fled the premises. The lighthouse had to be shut down after several reports of it turning off at random times, or guiding sailors towards dangerous areas, despite being completely unmanned. One can only assume that this mischief was the work of the spirits that haunt the lighthouse. This forsaken lighthouse has earned its place among the most terrifying locales in Ohio, a reputation upheld by relentless tales of ghostly apparitions, unexplainable phenomena, and an atmosphere so saturated with maleficent energy that it leaves visitors trembling in its wake. Whether driven by morbid curiosity or a thirst for the macabre, those who dare to cross the threshold into the South Base Island Lighthouse do so at their own peril. For here, in the heart of the lighthouse's labyrinthine corridors, the boundary between the living and the spectral blurs, and the chilling embrace of the unknown reaches out to ensnare those who dare to seek it. And at number 2, Moonville Tunnel. Deep within the remote woods of southeastern Ohio lies a sinister enigma shrouded in darkness, the Moonville Tunnel. This desolate and haunted passage, long abandoned by the living, stands as a portal to a realm where reality intertwines with the supernatural, and where the unwary may find themselves vanishing into the void if they dare to tread too close. The Moonville Tunnel, a vestige of an era past, was once a vital conduit for a long-forgotten railway. Yet, as time eroded the tracks and decay seeped into its very stones, a chilling transformation occurred. Stories of ghastly apparitions and eerie encounters have swirled around the tunnel, like the mist that clings to its mouth. Tales whispered among locals with a mixture of dread and fascination. Daredevil adventurers who have ventured into the tunnel speak of an oppressive, tangible malevolence that envelops the air, an unrelenting presence that seems to watch, to wait, and to hunger for the unsuspecting. Perhaps the most sinister tale is that of the Moonville Tunnel's insatiable appetite for souls. It is said that if you step foot into the tunnel around 3 a.m., when the boundaries between worlds are at their thinnest, you may never step back out. Foolhardy wanderers who venture into its depths during the witching hour risk becoming mere specters themselves, forever trapped in a twilight realm of torment and despair. The tunnel's history is steeped in tragedy, adding to its ominous aura. Legends tell of a brakeman who met a grisly end beneath the wheels of an oncoming oncoming train, his anguished spirit now condemned to roam the dark expanse. Others speak of mournful phantom cries that pierce the silence, echoing the heart-wrenching despair of a long-lost soul. Visitors who dare to challenge the Moonville Tunnel's eerie reputation tread a perilous path, as the moonlight filters through the dense canopy, casting ghostly shadows upon the tunnel's yawning maw. A feeling of being watched intensifies. Footsteps echo with an eerie resonance, their sound swallowed by the blackness ahead. Time itself seems to warp, stretching and distorting reality as though beckoning the unwary to step beyond the veil. To approach the Moonville Tunnel is to court danger, to teeter on the precipice of the unknown. It is a place where the boundary between the living and the dead blurs, where the rules of our reality are subverted by forces beyond comprehension. As the wind whispers secrets and the very earth seems to hold its breath, those who venture too close may find themselves joining the ranks of the vanished, a chilling testament to the dark and untamed forces that linger within the haunted confines of Moonville Tunnel. Coming in at number 1, Franklin Castle. Franklin Castle, an imposing Victorian mansion nestled in the heart of Cleveland, Ohio, stands as an enigmatic edifice brimming with dark secrets and eerie tales that have earned it a reputation as one of the most haunted houses in America. With its intricate architecture, turrets, and ornate details, the castle's exterior belies the chilling stories that have swirled around it for generations. Built in the late 19th century by German immigrant and banker Hans Tiedemann, the Franklin Castle was intended to be a symbol of prosperity and opulence. However, as time passed, the mansion's grandeur began to fade, replaced by rumors of tragedy, scandal, and paranormal activity that would come to define its legacy. The Tiedemann family was plagued by a series of untimely deaths, including the passing of several youngsters and Tiedemann's wife. The pervasive aura of grief seemed to seep into the very walls of the castle, fostering an atmosphere of melancholy and despair. It is said that the spirits of the deceased still linger within its chambers, their presence felt by those who dare to venture inside. Over the years, reports of ghostly apparitions, disembodied voices, and unexplained phenomena have only added to the castle's haunted mystique. Visitors and paranormal enthusiasts alike have recounted chilling experiences, from encountering spectral figures that vanish into thin air, to hearing whispers that seem to drift from empty rooms. Cold spots and sudden drops in temperature are often attributed to the presence of otherworldly entities, and of course the few unlucky folks who, seemingly out of random, would receive the same curse as Tiedemann all those years ago. The castle's haunted reputation has been further fueled by the stories of secret passageways, hidden rooms, and a mysterious woman in black who is said to roam the halls. These elements, combined with the mansion's unsettling history, have led to countless investigations by ghost hunters and paranormal experts seeking to unlock its mysteries.